Tobias, this is indeed an honor for KLAQ to have you on the air again and back in town, most importantly. Tonight's show, man, last time you played El Paso, you played Tricky Falls, which is a smaller space, smaller stage. Now tonight's show is the Abraham Chavez Theater with a bigger stage, and that was a necessity. Now, what's going to be different about tonight's show from the smaller presentation of 2 years ago?
Oh, it's going to be a major difference. Even back then, we did quite a drastic sort of downscale to get our stuff into Tricky Falls.
Smaller stage area, older building. Wow.
Yeah, and what makes Tricky Falls extra tricky is that it is, as far as I could see, it's definitely been a cinema, I guess, before.
It's had a lot of different lives. It's a very old building, very old, but it is a theater.
Yeah.
Yes, it is a theater.
Because it has that sort of speaker shape on stage, where you have two basically half circles eating up most of the stage area, which makes playing on that stage very hard because there's so little space. And especially our stage configuration, where we don't have a drum set in the middle, made that place very, very hard to work with.
How do you overcome I'm sorry. How do you overcome the challenge of a venue like tonight, which has seats instead of just a big standing room only crowd, to get the crowd so into it? But then again, it may not be a problem in El Paso because you got a ravenous following here.
Right. I mean, seats aren't necessarily a bad thing, depending on the vibe of the crowd. Usually, I mean, I know people even wonder this sometimes, like if there are seats, do we need to sit down? As far as I'm concerned, I want you to stand. I want you to leave your seat and come up to the front, preferably. I know you can't, but usually you can't. But people, 99 times of 100, people are standing up. So at least you have that sort of standing crowd. And especially if it's depending on where you are geographically, obviously, because temperament differs a little bit between cities. But if it's a Friday night, it feels like a normal show. Maybe on a Tuesday night, it might be a little. People are clapping and enjoying.
A little more laid back, a little
relaxed.
relaxed.
Bit more laid back. That's why I do prefer GA, general admission, basically a big standing floor. But it is a little bit of the price that we have to pay in order to get our production into to cater into 3,000 people. Usually 3,000 venues aren't necessarily very good for our show, but these venues that has 3,000 seats is very good for our show production wise. So it is a little bit like a middle road, yeah.
Well, the production for this looks like it's going to be impressive. Just the scale of everything that's being set up at the Chavez Theater for tonight. The sightlines at the Chavez are tremendous. So everyone is going to get just this amazing perspective of the performance. And I guess from what you just said, the most important instruction for the people in those orchestra pit sections is asses off the seat.
Yeah.
Those are the people who will be able to get up and share some of that enthusiasm and energy. And that'll be your most ravenous fans anyway.
Yeah. Well, you said also the sidelines are that's the big upside of playing. And obviously, I mean, some of these rooms are fantastic, like old theaters. But to know that most people in the room actually see quite a lot of the stage and the show is I feel very good about that. I mean, as opposed to if you have just a big square room, you'll obviously have people in the back that doesn't see as much as the one in the front. And so theaters are very good for that.
Tobias is the mastermind behind Ghost. This is your vision, your concept. You've said before that you're always a step ahead of where the music is going, where the concept of Ghost is going. You're just now starting out on this run, but is there already in your mind a vision for where Ghost is going to go next, or is it being formulated off of what you're experiencing along this tour from the crowd you're playing the new material for?
Both. That depends. I mean, musically, I am definitely thinking and working on the next album. I'm always trying to write. I always try to write songs that we do not already have, which is sometimes the big dilemma for your more traditional sort of conservative hard rocker, because they want you to write a previous record, whereas I'm like, you can listen to that if you want to, and we're going to play those songs as well, but I want to write new songs. I want to write songs that we don't have, because I still think that we're missing that song, and we need a song like that. We need a song that will do this, and you know, and every time I go into the studio, I try to get one of those, like, there we go, that we, you know, that song, that now we have a song that will fit very well towards the end of the set right there. Conceptually, in terms of with this band, obviously you have a visual concept and also a sort of a theme for every record, and that is another bit, I guess. You know, writing songs is one thing, but then you have to sort of try to tie that into some sort of theme. And I mean, it's we're not really at a place where we do like rock operas with a start to finish story about, you know, this one protagonist or something like that. It's more like a loose concept, the same way that you know, Injustice for All was about injustices and things like that, and maybe like Somewhere in Time was loosely based on the idea of time, and I think that we're very much alike, and I'm obviously very inspired by both Iron Maiden and Metallica when it comes to how a record and its themes sort of correlate with the stage presentation. And absolutely, I already know what we're going to do for the next record, and potentially one more record.
That's 2 steps ahead, not one
Yeah.
step ahead.
Yeah, but the fun thing about that is that, you know, that I'm basically doing, I have, for lack of a more correct word, I've saved a few things for the next album cycle, the next production, that we basically weren't able to do this time around.
Will it be tied in? Is it a continuation of the story? You're currently dealing with issues or situations, 13th century Black Plague. Is that where it goes next? Or is there another catastrophe in the course of mankind that will be the inspiration for the theme?
We'll see. But I mean, everything is
Damn, thought I could get you to give me a little something there, but
right.
it's
But
early.
it's tied in. I mean, if of course it follows some sort of thread, but we'll see.
How much of the inspiration for the songs comes from horror films, classic horror films? We've got one album cover image specific is Nosferatu, the old original black and white vampire film with Max Schreck. Are there other movies that you're pulling from that are inspiring you from songs? I mean, we just came from Halloween. There had to be something that caught your eye.
Oh, visually, I mean, if you go through our merchandise line, there's so much bites. Absolutely. I am personally very inspired by cinema in general. I am very, very cinematic in my thinking, and that's my, I guess my second biggest passion after music would be film. As far as horror films inspiring me to write, musically, yes, I guess, to an extent. I guess there are a lot of darker undertones that, I mean, I've been watching horror films for most of my life, and a lot of that sort of tritonous, sort of menacing music has always inspired me writing, except for as long as I played in bands, especially back in the days when I played like death and black metal and stuff like that. It was obviously very inspired by film scores and classical music, and that I brought with me into writing Ghost Songs. But Ghost Songs is also very inspired by a lot of sort of other, I don't know, like AOR music, like like big chorusy stuff, like Kansas and Boston and Queen and Kiss and Pink Floyd, and like big sort of normal rock music. So it's like a mesh between those two things, I think. Lyrically, I definitely draw parallels to the world of horror and underground metal in my choice of words, but I think that the meaning behind most of my lyrics is way more inspired by real life and earthly things. But it's expressed in a way to lead you into thinking that it's about unearthly aspects of it. It's just to draw parallels.
Well, you had told Loudwire.com that people think of it as the devil and demonic, and that's not the truth. It's about life and living, and it's the experiences. And based on exactly what you just said, what you're doing is you are taking real situations, historical, and it has that theatrical element. And it's going to be real curious for us, your fans, to see what Ghost is going to do on stage as this grows and you become more capable of putting on bigger shows, bigger settings, more stage, larger budgets. How much more will that theatrical aspect increase as those resources become available to your creative vision?
Oh, of course they will grow bigger and bigger, and a lot of the things that we are doing or not doing is definitely dictated by monetary means. Of
Size
course.
of everything.
Absolutely. And that is also why I am constantly working towards coming to a point where we could basically guarantee any audience that we will put on the same show anywhere. Which is another way to say that I am really working hard for us to play arenas everywhere. Because that is, when you're an arena band, unless it's your last arena tour and you're just about to be demoted, you're usually a show like that will enable you to have a stage. It gives you the size, and it usually also provides some monetary means to give you the funds to do a lot more. And one thing that we cannot do in most of these theaters, and that's why we're not doing it on a regular every night basis, is pyro, which is something that really annoys the shit out of me because I really love doing pyro, and people love pyro.
You like blowing stuff up?
Yeah, it really works. It's really good for the vibe, and we can't do that in most theaters. So for us to have a pyro crew of 2 people with a big boxes of bombs with us on tour is completely that would be a waste of money. But on the arena shows, there we're flying them in, and I want people everywhere to feel that they're not getting shortchanged, But it's just the nature of the beast, You can't do it everywhere, but step by step, slowly, we are taking steps from, obviously now from Tricky Falls to the theater that we're playing tonight.
The Chavez, Abraham Chavez Theater.
Abraham Chavez, thank you. And that's going to be a lot of the things that we weren't able to do last time. And the theater shows now are really, really big, and the production that we're bringing is really huge.
For future reference, file this away. The Don Haskins Center I pointed out to you?
Yeah.
Trans-Siberian Orchestra lights that thing on fire every year. Not this year, but every year. So you can do a lot of pyro in that venue in El Paso.
Yeah, that's the beauty of arenas. That's the beauty of the arenas. You have the space, and you have all that. You can rig everything, and you can blow stuff up, and big concrete floor. It's usually not as charming as an old theater, but the show will be better.
Tobias, I want to play off the horror film fandom thing and see if I can get the creative juices stirring, see where you take this. Cardinal Copia, the poor man, he's just passed on. And suddenly, I don't know, Bishop Piedras has taken over. What monster, if you had to plug any monster in him to having a secret identity, maybe he turned into a werewolf, he was really a vampire, or you pick it, what monster would this Bishop Piedras be fronting Ghost that would be a cool concept that someday you could get creative with?
The first thing that comes to mind is actually this horrible creature a friend of mine came up with years ago. It's called the Canis Penis.
The what?
The Canis Penis.
Which is?
It's basically a dog covered with penises. It's a horrible, horrible creature. The most heinous of hounds.
Does he spend his whole time just looking for bitches in heats, or?
I guess so. No, well, that was just the first thing that came to mind. So,
What a wonderful visual to pop into the head first.
Yep.
Tobias, at the end of the Square Hammer video, there's a red cardinal that appears on the screen. Was it the foreshadowing of the coming of Cardinal Copia with the next album?
It was.
Is there going to be foreshadowing at some point for where you're going to go next in this progression of songs and videos you're releasing?
There may be, yeah.
So this is something you do intentionally, regularly, or just as inspiration hits?
I mean, as I said, I draw a lot of inspiration from the cinematic world, and it's very common that you do. It's sort of, it's just part of the, like on-screen, like lingo that you just use if you because everything nowadays, obviously, you I guess the last 30 years there's been this concept of sequels and prequels, and therefore it's sort of a sport trying to get things in there that people can find, and it's just fun.
I think the best example of that is American Horror Story right now. What
Right.
they do, how they link the different seasons together, and characters can come back and forth. So there's all at
Yeah.
different points an intertwined theme, and they're doing it brilliantly this season. This is one of the best in a long time. But we digress. We're more worried about Ghost and what's coming with Ghost. And the one thing I think fans really want to hear, and you've kind of touched on it, so I'm going to go back to it again. You touched on the fact that you have one, maybe two ideas already working ahead in concepts for the album. The life of this band seems to be limitless. You're on the rise. The band's getting bigger. You're becoming more toward that arena band, which you previously spoke of. But as you do this progression, is there anything along the way as you grow that you don't want to lose, that you're concerned about losing from that original presentation in those smaller arenas and that intimacy?
One thing that I am looking forward to is having a pope back in the lead. I mean, technically we do have, because Cardinal Copia is not the leader yet.
Well, he's just second most employee of the month awards with great attendance.
Exactly. So he's working his way up. And I'm definitely also looking forward to him possibly becoming the real deal. I also miss the sort of skull painted Pope figure, you know.
When you look in the mirror, it's just not the same.
No, I mean I'm okay with the Cardinal. I think he's cool, and as I said, I mean I guess that's the idea when you have like a sort of a protagonist villain. He's a lot of those things that you're not, and I regard him the same way. Like he is a lot of the things that I guess I wish I was.
So you're not a good dancer?
I guess I'm a little bit stiffer than that. I need a few to do that.
A little liquid inspiration.
Right. And yeah, no, we differ quite a lot, him and I. But I'm definitely looking forward to in a future where he could also have his additional papal robes, and I think that given the right production setting, I think that there's definitely a lot of things that we can do that will be even more theatrical, more gags, and more things changing. That's also the part that sometimes is a little bit hard working with a 2-hour show, is try to get the stage to appear in different ways. So there's a lot of things like that I am looking forward to explore in the future. You'll see.
Tobias Forge, the man behind Ghost, complete this phrase. If you miss tonight's Ghost concert, you will miss...
Oh, you will miss a very extraordinary show that you might not be able to see anywhere else.
Well, one thing everyone listening who doesn't have tickets needs to remember is even though it's sold out, B17 is where our official pre-party is, and Brandon's got a couple of pair of tickets, so it's your last opportunity to get them for free right now until 7 o'clock. And then 8 o'clock tonight, Ghost takes the stage. Am I hearing this correct, that this show is over 2 hours long?
Yes. That's what you're getting. You know, a lot of songs. I think we're playing 26 songs. And then there's a few under the belt jokes.
Well, I'm kind of cheating because, I saw what the curfew is and the configuration, and I was just stunned it was that long. I told a couple of my staff mates, fellow staffers, that how long this was going to be, and they couldn't believe. And when you consider the price of the ticket, that's a lot of a night's entertainment with a band that has such a strong, passionate following. This is like the night in El Paso. This could be the concert night of 2018 that if you miss, all your friends will be telling you afterwards what you screwed up by missing.
I hope so. I hope you feel real bad.